Welcome to Sterling Candidates Night. This is presented by Sterling-Lancaster Community Television, and I'm Lex Thomas, your moderator for this event, and it's my pleasure to be here with you and the candidates this evening. On Monday, May 13th, Sterling residents will elect candidates for seats on a variety of town boards and committees. Tonight, we want to give voters an opportunity to hear directly from registered candidates that submitted nomination papers with the town of Sterling in order to appear on the ballot. We want to give those candidates the opportunity to tell you, the voters, what they want you to know in order to make informed decisions on Election Day. All registered candidates were invited to participate in this event. Now, you can find a complete list of open seats and candidates on the town website. And of course, everything has rules, so this has too. So these are the rules for this forum. First of all, I will introduce each candidate. In contested seats, candidates appear together. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to make an opening statement. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question from the moderator. That's me. Following my questions, members of the public will have an opportunity to each ask one question plus one follow-up question, directed through the moderator, which means that I will recognize an audience member that wishes to pose a question. Now, I will impose a 30-second time limit on questions and request that community members ask succinct questions without preamble and commentary. Just ask your question. And candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. In contested races where there are more than one candidate for a seat, candidates appear together, and there is an opportunity for rebuttal. However, this year we have something a little bit different in that there are 2 candidates for the Board of Health, but there are 2 available seats on the Board of Health, which is a 2-year seat and a 3-year seat. And so as they are not competing against each other, then they will each individually have an opportunity to outline their platforms. And finally, each candidate will have 1 minute to deliver a closing statement. And I will activate my trusty stopwatch here at the start of each statement and response. I respectfully ask you to abide by these rules as they help to move the event along and to give as many people an opportunity as possible to speak. I also ask that we observe the rules of courteous and respectful conduct and speech, and that we refrain from conduct and speech that is disrespectful, prejudicial, inflammatory, or obstructive. And so, with all that being said, I call up here Richard Lane. He is a candidate for election as town moderator for a 3-year term. So Richard, come on up to the hot seat.
Thank you, Lex. Welcome everyone, thanks for coming.
And you have 3 minutes to make your opening statement.
Now, okay, I'm running for town moderator, quite frankly, because no one else put in for it. The town moderator is one of those things that you never really think of until you're at the town meeting. And we need a moderator. So I'm running. So a moderator can make or break a meeting, and anyone who's been at our meetings recognizes that. You want a moderator that is, number one, is fair, okay? This is still America, at least I believe it is. The voters have a right to be heard. This is especially true in our town meeting form of government. The town meeting form of government is the purest form of democracy because it allows all eligible voters an active role in deciding local policy and decisions in town, local policy decisions and town bylaws. In order to assure that that occurs, the moderator must allow participation, but must also recognize that some discussion is not productive. So establishing and announcing rules before the meeting is important to balancing fair participation and fair treatment to those in attendance at the town meeting. You want a moderator that knows their role. The moderator doesn't decide what happens at a town meeting, although they do preside over how it happens. How the procedure works is important to decorum. It is easy for things to get out of order, and by that I mean mixed up, if the moderator doesn't control the procedure. You want a moderator that is willing to control the situation. Sometimes that means shutting down conversation. Many issues can be emotional for people, and many people are passionate about their particular issues. And I believe that's awesome. That is exactly what our government is about. However, there can be a point where the conversation becomes unproductive. And it's the moderator's job to be able to recognize and shut that down in a fair and objective manner. That can be difficult as a resident because I have opinions too. And I've often thought that it might be better for the moderator to be a professional, maybe someone from out of town that was hired to conduct the meeting, but that's not the way our system is set up. So my goal is to perform this role in a measured and fair manner, and I hope I can live up to that goal.
Thank you, Rich. Now, you actually answered my question, because my question was that not many people know what the role of a town moderator is. So can you explain that? So let's go a little bit further into what is the function of a town meeting. And I realize that this goes a little bit outside of that question, but why should people be concerned about this?
Be concerned about the town meeting? First of
Exactly.
all, our form of government, I think, is just unbelievable. The town meeting form of government is, everyone can get involved. So no one has an excuse when something doesn't go the way that they wanted to go if they didn't come to the town meeting. We need to hear from people. We need people to get involved and participate in the town meeting. And it's the moderator's job to do that and to run the meeting, fairly and productively. It takes a little panache, I think, sometimes to get that done the right way, and sometimes you can have a little bit of difficulty, but I think a lot of that can be resolved if you set the rules from the beginning. And the town meeting that I did run earlier last year, that's exactly what I did. I tried to set up the rules so that everybody knew beforehand and nobody was surprised, and I think it went pretty well. So.
Excellent. Are there any questions from the public? Anybody that has a question, please come up to the podium, state your name, please, and ask your question.
John Kilcoyne, 90 Beaman Road here in Sterling. Thanks for running, Rich. I just want to say, 2 years ago, my last day here in the Board of Selectmen, the current moderator, I think, fell sick or had a conflict and couldn't moderate that evening. And I remember it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so we got to get one. So Bill Caldwell and myself, the town administrator, picked a couple of names, and this guy's name came up first. So we went over and dragged him out of his house, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We said, Rich, you got to be the moderator tonight. You have no choice. We have to do it. And he did it. And he did a real good job. And I commend you for that, because it's kind of a nerve-wracking situation, as you know, and you pull it off, did a great job. The other thing I want to say, I have another meeting, so I wanted to get this in if I can, Lexi. The fact that Mr. Lane is, I guess, the only one running for moderator, and there are no contested races for the Board of Health, and there's probably no contested races in some of these other positions. I think there's a ballot question this year. I'm going to sneak this in right now. This is the reason why I don't think it's a good idea to go from 3 to 5 Board of Selectmen or Select Board members, because we're having trouble getting people to run for offices right now, as we know from tonight alone. So I know the reason, probably a good reason, well, more hands, can do more work. But the opposite of that is, as you can look at Wachusett Regional School System, more hands sometimes create more work, unnecessary work. So I would only encourage the voters to vote to keep it as it is for now. I talked to our town accountant, the auditor, Tony Roselli, 2 years ago when this came up. What better person to chime in on the size of boards of selectmen? And because their firm does not only Sterling, but numerous towns and cities in the Commonwealth. And he said to me, he said, John, he says, 8,000 people is ideal for 3 people, right? Usually the rough rule of thumb is 10,000 people. 10,000 residents is when towns start considering if some adopt a bigger board of 5 select people or more. But we're not there yet, and I just think we don't need to be, and I think the overwhelming evidence shows that every election we just have trouble getting people to run.
John, thank you so much, and I understand that there are a lot of issues that are going on in this. However, the purpose of this evening is to allow our candidates to speak. So, John, thank you very much for your input. But now, Mr. Lane, I would like you to get back to making a closing statement. There's another question. Yes, please. Oh, there are more questions. All right.
Thank you very much, Dick Shepherd. I'm a former moderator and also a selectman in town. Rich, thank you very much for running. I wasn't aware that you were running, but he did an excellent job a couple of years ago, I think, when he had to fill in very quickly for somebody, and when the moderator was out sick. I want to also reiterate what John just said. Having been a selectman for 9 years in town, when that issue came up about increasing the number of selectmen in town, I got up and spoke against it, as did Rich. I don't think we need 5 selectmen in this town unless we reach that 10,000 voter threshold. I voted.
Mr. Shepherd, do you have a question for Mr.
And so I don't have a question for him. I just want to congratulate him for running.
Excellent.
And I also just want to say that there are a lot of divisive issues that come up during the meeting. In other words, somebody standing up and saying, I want to move a particular warrant article to another location on the warrant. That's where you really have to take a stand. And why is that individual doing that, or why is the group trying to do that? You're trying to change the whole outcome of the meeting, and you have to stand your ground on that. So, and I'm sure you will, based on
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. I understand that there are a lot of issues at play here, but what we are talking about right now is Mr. Lane as the town moderator, not ballot questions or anything else. Is there somebody that has a question for Mr. Lane?
I do. I'm Dana. I live over on Griffin Road. I do have questions about how to run the meeting. Sometimes they run long. I'm wondering if you're going to limit the time that people can speak, like only 2 hours, or if you're going to give everyone an opportunity to speak, or maybe the last part to that question is they can put in, is there a way to put in your questions beforehand to know what's on the agenda? I mean, basically, how do you plan to run your meetings?
Okay. Good question. That was actually going to be how I ended. Yeah.
You have 2 minutes to answer that question.
Okay. So one of the things that I did at the last meeting that I moderated was I did put a time limit in. So 3 minutes seems to be like enough time. I also asked people to prepare themselves before they got up there, so there wasn't a lot of preamble and things like that, and that helped to narrow it down. I also ask people not to get up and repeat the same,
Right.
the same point. So if somebody's made the point, let's move on to the next point. So honestly, it's kind of difficult sometimes to tell people to stop them, but I did have to do that a few times during that meeting, and one was to Mr. Shepherd's wife, as a matter of fact. So I am willing to do that, and I think that is important because we don't want meetings to go on and on and on. And the other thing, and again, this was part of my closing, is that I'm a big proponent of technology.
Yes.
You know, we have the clickers
Yes.
to vote. Those are awesome.
Right.
You know, they save a lot of time. You know, we don't have to appoint vote counters anymore. And it's just so much easier. Something else I'd like to see as far as technology goes is, you know, a lot of times, how much time do I have left?
30 seconds.
Okay. We're reading the warrant articles, you know, people have the warrant in front of them, but why can't they be projected on the screen as well? You know? And then lastly to that, one of the things that the moderator can do is require any amendments to warrant articles be submitted in writing, and I will require that.
Can I have a follow-up to that then?
Yes.
So on the last meeting, there were discrepancies with the warrants and there was a mix-up in paper and it was just super confusing for everybody in the room. Is there a way to prevent that from happening in the future? Have a cutoff or something to where we
There
can
was-
know what's actually on there before we're asked to vote on it?
Oh, okay, I think there was a misprint in the warrant, in the town warrant. Is that what you're referring to?
Right, right.
Okay.
And then there were inserts that were added and it was just really confusing to
Yeah.
everyone in the room.
Unfortunately, because humans are involved,
Right.
there can be mistakes like that
Right.
made. I think as far as the insert went, that was the best resolution that we could
Okay.
have at the time. I know the select board has already addressed that. I'm not going to speak for them, but I know that they've had more people review it. So that's something that could be done beforehand.
Okay.
So, and also when warrant articles have been submitted to the town administrator, he's asked for them in electronic form, rather than just be given a piece of paper. Because when they're given a piece of paper, they have to retype it into the computer.
Right.
They don't have a scanner. But if it's submitted electronically, then they can take that and just cut it and paste it into the warrant.
Okay.
That's much better too. I love, if we can do things electronically, we should do it.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Lane? All right, Mr. Lane, you have 1 minute for a closing statement.
a lot of my closing statement was just mentioned, but so just to follow up on the electronics, you know, there are multiple laws that allow the moderator to declare how the vote went. I'm not a big fan of that. And that's where electronics comes in. If we're using the clickers, we know immediately if it's 2/3, we know immediately if it's the majority. So that's why, you know, I'm gonna push for using the electronics. So there's not any of that, you know. And again, I did want to mention, at least at this point, you know, there are bylaws that allow the moderator to require that certainly any amendments or motions made for amending for financial issues to be in writing, but as a moderator, you can also require all motions to be in writing, so any motions from the floor, just to let everybody know, I am gonna, if you vote for me, I'm out of time, all right?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And now we are going to call up Donald Carter. and Donald Carter is a candidate for election to one of 2 seats on the Library Board of Trustees for a 3-year term. So, Don, first of all, you have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you. This is the first time I've ever run for an office in town, so it's a little different for me. I'm a little overtaken by what's going on here. My wife and I have been, my wife Gwen and I have been residents of Sterling for over 50 years. And my neighbor still considers me an outsider, which is nothing new. I'm a retired school teacher of 33 years in Fitchburg. I was also the treasurer for the Teachers Union for 12 years. And then when I retired, I decided I'd volunteer in town. And started volunteering at the senior center when it first opened up, doing the Meals on Wheels and the pancake breakfast that they have at the end of every month. But I was looking for something else. So I joined the Friends of the Conant Library last fall. And what an amazing group of women that I ran into. They're so organized. They do things for the library, support the library, and I thought, this is amazing. I don't do anything. I just sit there, and if they need help, I'll help them. But these women are unbelievable. Well, they raise money for the library with their craft fair and their membership drive. And with this money, they are able to sponsor some of the activities for the library, or if the library needs things that the budget can't afford, they provide it. One of the things is their summer reading program, which I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. I hear it's pretty great. And because of this little card, it opened up a new world to me. I never used the library much, but now with this card, I get books. My wife gets audiobooks. I get museum passes. I've run into a fantastic staff over there at the library who I really enjoy and I want to support. So I figured, somebody said to me, well, there's an opening on the Board of Trustees for the library. And I said, great, let me give it a shot. All I want to do is to be able to support the library in any way I can, with their budget, with their policy, whatever. Another thing I wanted to say was, if you ever get a chance to look at the Landmark magazine, paper we get every month, look at all the activities that our library offers. And it's not just for certain people, it's for the whole community.
Don, your 3 minutes are up.
Oh. Well, I guess that's good and bad. I don't know.
Okay, you still have time to speak. So this is my question to you, Don. Libraries throughout the country were really hit hard by the pandemic, and it seems that more people are using online resources which give you access to things not only statewide, but nationwide and even worldwide. So how do you intend to bring the community back into our library? And you have 2 minutes to respond.
Well, I think the activities that they provide every month. One of my comments here was, if you've ever been there in the morning, Monday through Thursday morning, and seen the little kids, the toddlers, come down with their parents after going to a reading program. And these kids come down holding a craft project that they did. And they have a book. And they have this smile that goes from ear to ear. And they have a great time. And this is like the foundation for our library to continue growing. These young people. And then you get the kids in school. I ran into a kid the other day. One of the parents from the Friends of the Library. And I said, I noticed he had a book, and I said, have you ever read Skinny Bones? Oh, my teacher's got that book. I can't wait to read it. You know, I'd like to see us bring the community into using the library. And the library has access to other libraries and other resources that are not just in our own library, but they can get from other places. And we need to take advantage of those things.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any questions from the public? Yes, Mr. Shepherd, please state your name. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Do you have any plans at all to expand what the library does with their craft fair with something else? I quickly give you a scenario, okay? I was a teacher
Please.
like you in Rutland, and I had some of my students do a food type of thing where they auction things off. And they took that money, wasn't a tremendous amount of money, but it was probably about $150. And they donated it to the library to do things that we do over there right now.
Right.
So I don't know if you have any ideas or plans along those lines, and I'd like to know that.
Well, this is my first time getting involved with the library, and I really don't have any plans. I'm sort of looking for a little guidance and a little push in here and a little pull there to lead us down the road.
Write that one down.
Yeah.
I will.
And what are the responsibilities of a trustee?
Excuse me,
Stand up. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I figured you knew all of us now. Same. We're always standing. I'm Dana on Bratloff on Griffin Road. What are the responsibilities of a trustee?
Basically, from what I know, because I don't know too much about them, is that they have a budget from the town, which they oversee the use with the libraries and make sure that the library stays within that budget. And policy making. There are questions coming up today about, well, should this book be in the library? That book shouldn't be in the library. I think the trustees, I hope the trustees have a say on it. But, you know, we have a great library and a great library staff here, and I think we need to support them with the trustees, as a trustee member, because they're doing a great job. And it's like a hidden gem in this town that people aren't aware of or don't use much of.
Would you make it open to the public to voice their opinion on what books belong and what books don't belong? Or choices of, I'd love to see this in the library or not this?
I don't think it would hurt, but I think, you know, you need to have the director of the library have a say, and the trustees have a say, and if the community wants to say something, then let's have a little forum on it. But I don't think we should have one person saying, oh, we gotta ban all these books. There's a fellow down south who took all the books out of school because he didn't think they were appropriate. That's wrong. I don't think we should go that way. You know, I think people should be involved in this, and not one person making the decision. I think it's a group that makes a collective decision on it.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Please state your name.
Yes, Laura, Richard Bean Road. I was wondering if perhaps that you might be instrumental in getting these keychains that we put on our keychains so that they last. Okay? Because my library one fell off because it ripped, okay? Same goes for the senior center, but this is a different library, same thing, okay? These are cheaply made and they get weathered, so I'm hoping if you get elected that you'll help me, okay? So that,
It's an idea.
okay?
I have the same thing with my senior center library.
Yeah, it's peeling.
Yeah, that's why I have one of these and I stick it in my wallet and wherever I go.
That's on my bureau.
I can't help you there.
Are there any other questions for Dawn? Dawn, you have 1 minute to make a closing statement.
I have not much to say except thank you for letting me present my point on becoming a board of trustees to the library. And I hope I can get your vote on May 13th. And I look forward to working for the community and the library and the staff at the library. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
You're welcome.
And now we're going to turn the hot seat over to Maureen Cranston. So the candidate for re-election to a 3-year term on the Select Board is Maureen Cranston.
I usually sit on cushions when I sit in this chair. Yeah, I know, I see them, thank
You
you.
look like you're at the kids' table.
Alrighty then.
So you're, can you let me introduce you before you start in? Okay, so the candidate for re-election to a 3-year term on the Select Board is Maureen Cranston. And so Maureen, you have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you. I think I know just about everybody in the room, and if I don't, Maureen Cranston, I have been on the Select Board for a long time now. This is 9 years, I'm going into my 4th cycle. And to be honest with you, I debated about doing it because I think new faces are always a good thing. I get the history part of it, but the new faces is what I'd like to see. I've been in town since 1972. I started in town volunteering right at the get-go. I was on conservation with Ruth Hoffman. Some of you know Ruth. And I volunteered a lot at the schools, from the littles to the bigger ones, junior high and high school. Obviously, I also worked with the senior center with Dawn, actually, and Dick Mackey. I was on the senior center building committee. I get on town meeting floor, and I think we finally got the funding because people were sick of seeing us on the floor asking for the funding. And I still maintain a membership with the Friends of the Sterling Seniors and do fundraising with them. I've enjoyed my time. I've learned a lot since being on the Select Board. Every year they say you learn something new every day, and I think that holds true for the Select Board as well. There's not much else to say. Brought my kids up here, had 3 kids. They all went to the local schools. They went to the local high school. And one of them still lives in town with her babies, and they are going to our local schools. So still very connected, even though I'm a senior. Still very connected with all. I still volunteer at the schools and help with those babies.
Thank you, Maureen. While in many ways we seem to kind of be past the pandemic devastation that affected families and businesses and communities, the progress often seems slow. And for municipalities, countless projects were either canceled or significantly altered. Over the past few years, since the beginning of your last tenure, what initiatives have you personally worked on that were stalled due to the pandemic and that are now on track? And you have 2 minutes to respond.
In general, yes, the pandemic affected everything. We didn't have our meetings in person. It was on Zoom. Everybody enjoyed those. I did show up for those in-house. I hated Zoom. I still hate Zoom. But anyway, that's above and beyond. Some things that got put on the back burner. I'm guessing you're aiming towards the downtown renovation or something similar to that. I think people have to understand, and it wasn't just the pandemic that holds up these projects. Municipal, as well as state, is slow. It's very slow. It takes years sometimes to get what you need to get it forward. When I talk about the senior center, it took us 3 town meetings to get that funding. And that was a lot of going to finance, coming to the select board, working with the different groups to just get that going. And that's just in our small town. So then when you expand that, like with the downtown renovation, some of the companies we were working for, were not as, let's see, fast working as you would want them to be. Right now, we are still in there. There'll still be funding that will be necessary. We did save some of our ARPA funding to do the engineering for downtown. I work with the EDC as far as we have plans for the potential of facade reparation downtown. Working on all the things. One thing when you're on a board, or on the Board of Selectmen particularly, if you have a strong town administrator, as we have right now, and as we had with Ross Perry, these things can move forward. They're on top of things. That's what their job is. And as well as keeping the board informed, and as well as the board giving them some direction.
And you are with John. Thank you.
Oh, darn.
Are there any questions for Ms. Cranston?
1, 2.
You forgot to mention the ice cream store.
Yeah, well, do you
Long
have a
time ago.
question, Mr.
That
Shepherd?
was a good place.
All right, then Ms. Cranston, you have 1 minute for a closing statement.
Okay, Mr. Shepherd brought up the ice cream store. I have had businesses in town, and I actually do work in town now. I had, way back in the day, an ice cream parlor right here in the center of town. And then we had a lot of competition coming up, so we closed. But one thing I do want to say, and I know that Mr. Kilcoyne and Mr. Shepherd touched on it, there is a ballot question for 5 members. I've talked to a lot of people that have been on 5-member select boards and town administrators, and right now I agree with the gentleman, Mr. Shepherd and Mr. Kilcoyne, in that I don't think there's a need for it, but that's just my opinion. But I would ask people to make sure that they go to the town meeting, and do know that Richard will not be our moderator this year, unfortunately, and then go to the elections. Even though it looks like there's nobody running, at least show these people that have stepped in and stepped up that you support them in some way, shape, or form. Whether you agree with them or not, just show up. And that's for anything. There's open seats on a lot of our different committees and boards, and, you know, start small. And then you can grow up to be just like Mr. Lane and run for.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
done.
And we're moving on now to the Board of Health, and so we are going to welcome back Richard Lane. And Rich Lane is a candidate for election to the Board of Health for a 3-year term. And as I explained earlier, there are 2 candidates for Board of Health. The reason that they're not appearing together is that they are candidates for 2 different seats, so they're not actually vying against each other. So, Rich, you are the candidate for election for the 3-year term, and so you have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you. I decided to become involved with the Board of Health because of the controversy surrounding the deep observation hole requirement. I was further convinced to get involved when the board spent taxpayer dollars to undermine the citizen petition initiative. I believe no government entity should interject itself into such an effort by the citizens. This type of thing can produce a chilling effect where citizens begin to resent and become suspicious of government. And when I looked at the document that the board published, my decision was solidified. This document was full of misinformation. I actually became angry over it. It also raised my suspicions. Government is for the people. Some of those in government forget this. I have not. The first responsibility of any elected official is to serve the people that elected them. Part of that service is to listen to the people and respect their wishes. But not only respect their wishes, respect them as people. Ignoring the voters and refusing to listen to their voice is completely disrespectful to those that you agreed to serve. As an elected official, I believe that I have an obligation to the people I serve to represent them in the way that they want, even if I disagree with that. I'm not here for me, I'm here for them, and I must accept that or I shouldn't be in the position. As I mentioned earlier, I became involved because of the deep observation hole issue. In the past, I've referred to this board, the Board of Health, as a rogue board, and I stand by that. Because any board that is adamantly committed to defying the will of the people is a rogue board. But now I'm involved, I see just how dysfunctional this board is. And it needs to be fixed. We have a chairman who unapologetically violates the board's own policy, who represents himself as the voice of the board without ever discussing these matters with other board members. And when this is pointed out, the other member of the board lacks the integrity to even acknowledge that this action was wrong. This needs to be fixed. I also have seen multiple procedural issues that need to be addressed, not only in the way that the board conducts itself, but in the way it conducts its business. For this reason, I support the audit that was approved at the special town meeting in October. I don't think we need a financial audit. I believe financial accountability is well regulated at the town level, but we do need an objective party to review how the board does its business and make recommendations on how we can do better. And I'm not afraid to ask for that. I'm not afraid to see that, and I'm not afraid to hear about it. And I specifically refer to the board and not the employees, because the board is the responsible party. The board is the entity that holds the authority. So if the procedure occurs in a specific way, it's because the board has allowed it to be that way. I believe in an open, available, inclusive, and service-oriented government. I intend to assure that all these characteristics are used to describe the Board of Health in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Lane, once again, you've kind of anticipated my question. So my question was to say that our current Board of Health is in a state of crisis and chaos is really an understatement. And so my question is, what do you plan to do to restore balance to the Board of Health, and what are your top priorities? What are the top things that you're going to do?
The very first thing is to fulfill the will of the people and rescind the October amendments that the Board of Health made, that the people asked them at the special town meeting to rescind. That is the top priority. That is number one. And then to look at all of our procedures and all of our regulations. We've all been made aware of this controversy and the back and forth on this, that we've never found out why this regulation was put in place. Well, Sterling has multiple regulations that exceed Title V. How about if we look at all of them and see why they were put in place as well? Because all of these things can cost you money. You'd never find out about it until you're in a crisis. And then you find out that it's going to cost you more than your neighbors in other towns. Because at some point in time, a regulation was put in place that I've never seen any scientific basis for.
Thank you. Are there any questions from our audience? Yes, please come up and introduce yourself. State your name.
Would you mind just stating for us why you made the statement that you want to honor the will of the people?
Okay,
Just-
at the October special town meeting, there was a vote by the people at the meeting to request that the Board of Health rescind their October regulation change, the October 22 regulation change. It was an overwhelming vote at an unprecedented special town meeting. We had more people at that special town meeting than we do at most of our annual town meetings. And the fact that it was unprecedented, that meeting was called for one issue. There are people that have lived in this town longer than I have, but I don't know of it that ever happening before. It cost this town a lot of money, too, to do that. I say a lot of money. Any money is a lot of money when you have to spend it just to ask a board to do what the people want them to do. So I hope I answered your question.
Well, just part two to that.
Yeah. Are you done with the last
Yes, yeah.
response? All right, your follow-up
So,
question?
yeah, so part two to that, was there something that happened that that the board expressed that they would not honor the wishes of the people?
I don't know.
at the last town meeting. So is the board not going to recognize the wishes of the people?
Very much so, yes. They've stated over and over again that they will not.
Okay.
Yeah, at the board meetings.
Okay.
So I don't know if,
I was there, and so I just wanted
Okay.
for the,
there was a statement made at the special town meeting by the chairman. That's been reiterated at our board meetings. I was appointed by the select board in December. I say the select board because the 3 members of the select board voted for me. The 2 members of the Board of Health did not vote for me. So people can read between the lines. But, and, you know, I stated to the board, I've been upfront all along, that my primary goal is to rescind that regulation because the people asked us to. It's a legal request of the people. The people are not asking the board to do something that is outside of Title V or violates Title V or any law. It's a reasonable request by the people, and that's what the board should do. And that's why I said, if I'm in a position and the people want me to do something, even if I don't agree with it, it's my job to do it. If I feel that in my heart of hearts, I can't do that in that position, then I need to resign.
okay.
I should not sit at a table and say I'm doing this because I can.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes, please state your name.
Your name? Paul Salver, Birch Drive. Rich, can you clarify for me that this issue that came up is the same issue that was the speculation that it's illegal, it contradicts state laws, and our Board of Health chairman had said that if the people of the town aren't happy with the decision, that they should sue him, essentially, or sue the board, or sue the town, should take legal action, I think was the term. Is that the same issue we're talking about?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay.
And to clarify, the chairman continues to say that they have the legal authority to make regulations in excess of Title V. And they do, within certain parameters. First of all, there has to be a hearing. There was a hearing on this. But part of the problem with the hearing process in Massachusetts is it's not kept up with the times. The statute that requires a hearing process requires the notice for the hearing to be published in a newspaper of general circulation 2 times, starting 14 days before the meeting. You don't have to show your hands, but how many people get a newspaper delivered to their house? Okay? It hasn't kept up with the times. So if you're not specifically looking for a legal notice about a meeting, you would never have seen the meeting. And then nobody showed up for the public hearing. And instead of sitting back and going, maybe there's something wrong with the process here because nobody showed up for the public meeting, they made sure that they put it in the notes. Nobody even showed up for the public meeting. So my impression was it's almost thumbing their nose at it. Instead of saying, let's do a better job at notifying our people about regulations that may affect their pocketbook, instead of saying that, they said, you know what, nobody's here, we're going to do what we want. That's wrong. That's not the way the government should work. And also at that meeting, that hearing, they did not state, there's 2 requirements of the statute. One is that they have to have the public hearing. 2, that they have to state at that public hearing the local conditions or reasons why they're establishing this regulation that exceeds Title V. They never made that statement. So they didn't fulfill half of what the law requires.
Thank you, Mr. Lane.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And are there any other public questions for Mr. Lane, for the Board of Health Chair? All right. Rich, you have 1 minute to make a closing statement.
Because of the questions, I said a lot of what my closing statements would be. But again, I would like everyone, and I encourage everyone, to go to the Sterling-Lancaster cable TV, community TV, and watch the April 11th Board of Health meeting, please. Because you need to recognize what some of the elected officials in this town, how they're acting. And you need to look at that and decide, is that what you want? And I'd like to reiterate kind of what Maureen was saying. We need more people involved. Please step up and become involved. You don't need to be an expert on health to be on the Board of Health. You know, you need to be able to read a regulation. And there's only one requirement for you to run for any office in this town, and that is that you're a registered voter. So don't let anyone convince you that you're not good enough or you don't know enough to run for an office. We need people. We need a wider perspective on things, and I encourage everyone to please get involved as much as you can.
Thank you so much. So for our viewers, we are watching the Sterling Candidates Night, and we are now going to welcome Gail Hassett. We've got our election coming up on the 13th of May. So lots of opportunities for people to get involved. All right. So Gail Hassett is a candidate for election to the Board of Health for the 2-year term. And Gail, you have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Sterling has been my home and place I've enjoyed living for over 25 years. I've always held the mindset that it's important to do things well and the right way. A mindset that has led me into positions where I oversee and connect the right people to get the jobs done. Because of this, I've held jobs that range from stockroom supervisor, master scheduler, a realtor, a Board of Health clerk, and an evening administrator at a community college. I'm currently a part-time evening administrator for Quinsigamond Community College, where I have worked since 2005, except for when they closed during COVID-19. Then I went to work for the Board of Health in Millbury. I was only there for about 9 months, but I learned a lot about Board of Health concerns. One of the things I learned there was what questions needed to be asked to get the correct answers. They were very organized and transparent with the people of Millbury. Even though our health agent worked for 5 different towns, she was in the office multiple hours, almost daily, and was always ready to answer a question from me or any of the citizens of the town. What initially got me involved was in 2013, I learned that the Sterling Board of Health had added that requirement for the deep hole test. I knew that that was a problem right away because I knew DEP only recommended it for a new build or failed septic system. We were told one evening before a Board of Health meeting started that 7 other towns required the same thing by Dave Feverill. I called those 7 towns and spoke to some of their health agents. Listed in those 7 towns were Acton, Westminster, Duxbury, and Manchester. After speaking with them, I learned they do not require this. It is an option in Title V. Almost every town talked to me about better ways to get the answer to their question than deep hole. They weren't a fan of it. We had a special town meeting hoping that if the people of Sterling voted to let them know that they were against this grievous requirement, the Board of Health would remove it. The town voted, however, the Board of Health refused to do the will of the people. As I went to the meetings and they gave us the numbers of failed septic systems separately from 2009, before 1995 and after 1995, the numbers they gave us showed that the newer systems had twice the fail rate. And I asked them, why are you punishing the systems before 1995 when you've got twice the fail rate for the newer systems? Well, in fact, after I pointed that out at the special town meeting, they've stopped giving us the statistics at the meeting. After all this, I couldn't ignore the fact that we have a grave problem with our Board of Health. We need to change that. As such, I realized I needed to step up and do the right thing for the people of Sterling. I hope you'll support me, as I believe we need people who care about the people of the town and who will stand up for them in our Board of Health.
Thank you, Gail. Now, and you've covered a lot of this already in your statement, but tell me why the Board of Health is an important component in the town, and what are your 1 or 2 top priorities in your role as a Board of Health member?
It's an important fact, because a lot of things come through this, whether it's a restaurant, problems with restaurants, problems, all kinds of problems come through the Board of Health. And I actually think, the top priority is, of course, rescinding this previous deep hole. But the other parts is, I don't think that we're as transparent as we need to be. I think we need to have a clear communication, whether it's from the office, the health agent, from the citizens. And we need to have that set up. And maybe they do, but I don't see it. I haven't seen it yet. So my goal is to have us be a transparent organization where we're here for the people and try to help them the best we can, because that's who we're working for. I'm not here for me. I'm here for the people of Sterling. That's why I came when I saw the deep hole in the paper. That's what I got outraged. I says, oh no, I'm in on that, no way. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Are there any questions from the public for Ms. Hassett? All right, so Gail, you have 1 minute for a closing statement.
One of the reasons I think that I probably do a good job is because one of my specialties in life is digging out and ferreting facts and ferreting out what other people do. Rather than reinventing the wheel, talk to other boards of health, see how they do it. If we don't have something organized, figure out how the best way is to do it. I'm not afraid to go ask questions. As I've already shown you, I didn't even work for the Board of Health, and I've probably spoken to 20 boards of health easily. So that is what I do. I keep on asking until I get the right answer so we can resolve it, hopefully correctly.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you. And now we are going to call up to the hot seat Eric Newman, who is running for Planning Board. So Eric Newman is a candidate for election to the Planning Board for a 5-year term. And Eric, you have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
My name is Eric Newman. I moved to Sterling from Holden about 5.5 years ago with my family. I love it here. Like some others, I'm taking an opportunity to step into public service for the first time. I've been interested in town government and getting more into public service for years. I've had a career for the last 25 years as an engineer designing computer chips, and then an engineering manager managing, complex projects that last on the order of years with hundreds of people working on it in different teams that need to communicate. I think there's a lot of parallels between that and our town government with the different boards and how they need to communicate to execute implementation of the master plan specifically. So I think those skills translate the best into something like planning board. And I think
Eric, under our town planner and our town administrator and boards and committees, there are a number of issues and initiatives in planning phases. And what do you see as the priority for the planning board over the next few years? And you have 2 minutes to respond.
So I haven't, I'm new to the planning board. I'm the new person. I'll be digesting everything and figuring out how everything works. I've read through the master plan. At the end of the master plan, there's a bunch of actions. It's basically, this multi-year process that distilled kind of the will of the town into actionable things for long-term implementation. And there's things in there like simplifying the protective bylaws to make them more understandable to people, to simplify the process for people. I'd like to focus on some of the longer term things in the strategic plan, like, senior housing. I think the two different roles are kind of the strategic long-term stuff where the keys are communication with other boards and communication to the public. Like there should be some kind of annual master plan implementation report that gets sent out to people saying, here's where we are with the master plan. And then the other thing is is kind of the day-to-day reviewing of plans and the complex interaction with people who have plans before the board. And then it's communication and simplification of that process.
Thank you. Are there members of the public that have questions for Mr. Newman? Yes? Please state your name.
Well, my name is Michael Padula, and I live on 139 Hayward Road. Mr. Newman, I have a couple questions. We'll start at one. I guess from what you say, you don't have much experience as far as on the planning board, which is fine. Like Mr. Shepherd, I was on the planning board for 10 years, other than he was a selectman. And on the planning board for that long, we had a lot of things that came up with zoning. And that is going to be part of this master plan. And, you know, with the experience and things like that, I'm just wondering how that's going to, I know you're going to be a learning process and how zoning is very difficult. Myself personally was on the board, and before I was on the board, I did the zoning in Sterling, and I did it in Lunenburg also. We did some I did some commercial zoning in Lunenburg. And, you know, there's a lot of subdivisions and all that stuff. And I'm just wondering, you know, what you plan to do. You're just going to learn this as you go along and...
Yeah, I mean, I would, you know, probably learn as I go for the first few months and digest everything that's in the master plan and kind of talk to other people in the town about how they feel about it. But I feel like the master plan is probably the best roadmap that we have, right? Like, it was a multi-year process where they took feedback from everybody in the town multiple times and distilled it into actionable things. And so that the things in there that are listed as high priority, I think, would be the focus. Like, you know, I think there's considering adjusting the performance zoning, turning that maybe into commercial, or, you know, I would use the master plan as my guide for prioritization until I know more.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Yes, Mr. Shepherd?
Dick Shepherd, Eric, congratulations for running, first of all. I know it's always difficult to make that decision, but what did you learn in Holden about the things in Holden that you didn't like? And how would you apply that to some of the things that you've talked about here, that is the master plan and other things, and what you might not like Sterling to become? And I'll give you some quick examples. West Boylston, you know, Route 12 is all businesses, and I think there's an antique store every other business. And there's a little shop here and a little shop there and a big mall here. I don't know that anybody in this town that's lived in this town for any length of time wants to see that in Sterling. I guess I'd like to know your thoughts on that. You've lived here for 5 or 6 years or so, and I think you've gotten a good feel for the community, and what are the good things you like about it, and what are the things you don't want to see it become?
Mr. Newman, you have 2 minutes to respond.
So, you know, I love the downtown area of Sterling. I like from Holden, what I don't miss is the horrible traffic from Main Street. There's not really a corridor to the highway for other towns in the area. It was just, you know, horribly planned long-term. I think I'd like to see, I don't know, downtown revitalized, have wider sidewalks, have stuff like outdoor dining for some places that are, you know, things like that. Expand the downtown area to include more, longer term commercial restaurants, shops, not necessarily a long corridor of like Route 12. In the master plan, they talk about prioritizing things that will also entice younger population to move into the town. There's things with demographics, aging population that they want to counteract. I would weigh all the proposals and see which ones best align with what I think the people of the town want through the master plan, I don't think I would steer things with my personal desire necessarily.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes.
Joe Chesagrosa, 6 Bean Road, and I think this says a lot that there's this many questions for this position, so I appreciate you taking on this responsibility, to be honest with you. My concern is with protecting the rural character, my neighborhood residential zone, and commercial property being next to it and around it, and allowing the loss of true commercial identity of a dentist's office, a restaurant or something, and using it for quote-unquote light industrial type of uses, which has happened kind of down Route 12 a little bit. And how would you balance the rural character and the push for this commercial, foundation that we want for tax purposes?
So, yeah, so personally, I like things like what you're saying that are small businesses that people go to and not necessarily like contractor yards that are just, they're kind of they can be an eyesore. Special permits for that kind of thing, I mean, those are special permits, right? That the usages of stuff like that in those zones that we could go in a direction to not do as much of that adjacent to residential areas, and so yeah, I agree with you there.
Okay. Appreciate it very much, and I appreciate you going on board, hopefully.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
Hi, Laura, Ritchie Bean Road also. Some of the meetings that I've gone to in the past of, the planning board and other board meetings in the town, everything kind of goes with this water and septic, okay? If we keep building and building and building, where does the water come from? Okay, for people that need to flush their toilets, okay? When we have problems with the water supply pump down on Route 12, okay? And the big developments that are going in down here at 100 Clinton Road, okay? They're gonna have problems with septic, okay? So how are we going to control that? Because we don't have what West Boylston has and what Holden has with town storage, okay? That they paid millions of dollars to have to put in there. I don't see that happening here. We got too many hills. I don't know how that would ever happen, okay? So my concern is the future, to make it so that we don't run out of water. And that I'm not gonna hit somebody coming out of the driveway on Route 62 in a 50-mile-an-hour zone. So there's a lot of components, involving other boards that need to work together, and somebody has to say, you can't do that, okay?
Thank you, Ms. Ritchie. What is your response?
I mean, there are other towns that are like double our size, like for example, Westford, that don't have town sewer, and they just have, everybody has septic, and, so I don't necessarily think that based on the growth projections, like we absolutely need sewer or whatever. I mean, I'll listen to all the engineering about it and make a data-driven decision. I think I'm very even-keeled. I'll never pound on the table and say, stop doing that. I'll actually have a calm, rational discussion with people on other boards and the public about it, but I don't know what else to say.
Thank you. Are there any further questions?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on that
Yes, follow
question.
up.
It's a valid question. Dick Shepherd, water. Water is a key thing in this town. I know we're looking for new wells. I think we're in the process of probably quite a ways along in developing those new wells on, unfortunately, state property and not town property. And so there's going to be some give a take on that when we finally do it. But the more we tend to build in town, and there's still another very large building to be built up on Northgate Plaza on Route 12, where are we going to really get that water? And or are we going to have to try to convince MDC, well, actually it's not MDC, it's the Water District, for the Metropolitan Water District, to tie into the Wachusett Reservoir. I don't think we're ever going to do that, but that is an option that we have. How do you feel about, you know, the growth and maybe exploding growth and having no water?
I mean, I'm not, you know, I assume that we can finish doing the well developments that we're doing, and we could explore options of connecting to other water sources if we need to. I don't really have a strong opinion on, I mean, I'd like to be more self-contained, like we should have probably more wells and as much as we can control our own water source.
One well field in town.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Mr. Newman?
Gail Hassett, East Park, Sterling. So as a planning board, is there a way you can say we can only serve this much, we only have this much water, so we can't do anything else until we take care of this problem?
I mean, I believe we could set limits on development and you know, meter out new permits for building and stuff like that, but I mean, that's probably the only thing within our power to do.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Mr. Padula.
Yes, Mike Padula, Haywood Road again. My question is that when we're on the board, on these boards, it takes a lot of time to do a good job. And I was wondering if you have that time to do that. Because like I say, this is what makes these boards efficient. It helps if people are retired and stuff like that, which I am now, so I would have plenty of time to be doing that. And as far as this woman's question, I don't know about the water, you can control that to a certain extent, because the planning board did do that when I was and a few other people were on that board.
Yep.
So I was just wondering if you have the time, you plan to put the time in, go on site visits and things like that.
Yeah, I have the time. I work from home mostly, and I have a very flexible work schedule, so I mean, depending on how much time can be on weekends versus weekdays, I probably have at least 2 hours per weekday that I could free up during the workday. And then after work hours, of course, and weekends, I can do all prep work for, you know, pre-reviewing plans and stuff, so I can come to meetings prepared. I think I have enough time.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Mr. Newman? Thank you, Mr. Newman. So we are coming to the end of our candidates' night. I want to thank all of our candidates for their views and their contributions to a vigorous discussion of issues that are important to our town and to our voters. And I want to thank our voters, our viewers for tuning in. And I also want to thank our wonderful audience for being here to ask questions. So I want to remind viewers that our Sterling Town election is Monday, May 13th. The polls will be open at Houghton Elementary School. It's located at 32 Boutel Road, and the polls will be open from 12 noon to 7 p.m. Now, in addition, vote by mail is available to all registered voters. And Monday, May 6th is the last day to apply for mail-in absentee or early voting ballot. So that's Monday, May 6th. So make a note of that date. And all mail-in ballots must be returned to the town clerk's office in person, by mail, or in the drop box outside of the Buttrick Municipal Building by 7 p.m. on Monday, May 13th. And you'll find a vote-by-mail ballot application, sample ballot, and a lot more election information on the town website. On behalf of Sterling-Lancaster Community Television, thank you for watching.